In the Onion, fine. And so then there was a fun thing that happened at the end, sort of the sermon closed, and somebody brought out a box that was very Raiders of the Lost Ark looking. It was very like this neat box. They opened it up, music, fun music, and we all took money, and we walked and threw the money in the thing. A little brochure and I left. So happy, and I don't know what the money, maybe, I don't know what it was for, but I was so happy to be part of that, and felt certainly that it was fine to pay an admission. So then the second church, or I don't know if it's the second church, but the next church I want to tell you about was a church I referred to as the Gap Church. Now, this was a church that was on the way to my boyfriend's parents' house, and I would always see it. It was a beautiful big church. It was called the Church of Glad Tidings. And at a certain point, they erected, I think they got like a new marketing director or something, and they erected these big, like sort of billboard-sized photographs that looked like, Gap or J. Crew stock photography. They were people, kind of happy with a sweater over their shoulder, like blowing bubbles, and intergenerational. It was, I think to say, come on in. These are anybody here. Now, this church is in Northwest Hills, Austin, which is an affluent area, and it was a big church. And I went in. They had a coffee house in the church. They had coffee and stuff. There are a lot of young people, teens, not many children, but, like teens, a lot of women, and predominantly white. And very, a middle-class Texas lady, nicely coiffed, is that ladies kind of, having these embodied moments with spirit, having these kind of performance art moments to me. But there was something about it that resonated, and I thought to myself, I am a guest here. I am in these people's spiritual home. And I just felt how can I be respectful in this situation? And then there was the thing where you talk to the neighbor, and there was this lovely elderly white lady, and she held my hand, and she said, I haven't seen you here. Are you, kind of, a nice, I don't know, the nice way of saying, what are you doing here? And I decided I would just tell her, I would be respectful. And I said, I'm an artist, and I'm studying worship. I like it, and I'm going to different churches each week in Austin, and I hope after, a while of doing this, I will be able to make some kind of art or performance out of it. And she said a thing that may be an ambiguous statement, but in Texas she said, well, bless your heart. Yes. Which can mean something good and can mean something bad. Really nice. Yeah. But she said to me, I think she believed that I would benefit from kind of a more intense experience, and she led me. She said, you should come over here. And this was the time during the service where people in the congregation came to the pulpit area, like there was steps and kind of the stage area, and this was where you would have a special blessing, or where people, kind of elder people or more experienced people in the church would touch you. And I saw things I didn't see in regular life. Two men with their arms around each other, their foreheads touching, clearly praying. Yes. Clearly, sharing something together. And so she leads me to these three women. And they're sitting together, and she says, this is Annie. She's new. And they say, so good to meet you. So you're going to speak in tongues. And I said, well, I don't know how. And they said, just wait, open your mouth, breathe, let the Spirit come through. So of course nothing. And so I said, I'm sorry. They said, just relax, just relax. Nothing. And so one of them, she growled my chest and it tried to loosen me up and did the sound la la la. It was kind of la la la. And she's doing this. I laughed so hard. I kept laughing. And I say, I'm so sorry to laugh. This is all that's coming out. And they said, well, that's the Spirit coming through. And I was like, okay. And of course, this made sense to me because in the time that I've been developing an idiosyncratic spiritual life, as maybe we all do, I think my higher power has a really funny sense of humor. And once I was in a setting somewhat like this near Seattle, and I was with a friend and we got on a little hike, and he had gone off somewhere, and I sat on a log, and it was covered in just the most beautiful moss, the richest moss, and things were damp, and everything seemed to be bursting with that kind of beautiful, vibrating green nature life. Everything was glorious. And I felt so good there. And I didn't generate a sentence in my head, but it was as though something came into my head and it said, there is a cure for every suffering already here. Wow. And it's just for us to find it. Wow. And that felt so good. And then I'm telling you, like a split second later, same thing falls into my head. American muscle cars of the 70s are worth their weight in gold. Maybe it's true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's true. I wish I had a duster or a charger or something. And I have had other experiences like this. Once, there are many, but once I was dancing. I was at a dance, like ecstatic dance thing, and it kind of came into my head that, I don't need to. It wasn't so succinct, but it was something about not needing to be so busy all the time. That sometimes life is to be in the dance, and sometimes life is to be sitting out. And then right after, tacos are the perfect food. And let me tell you, at my house we ate tacos for like a month. They do have carb, protein, dairy, vegetables.
That's right.
Everything.
That's right.
Yes. And there are breakfast, lunch, and dinner tacos. So, anyway, I'll tell you now about the last church that I went to. And that church was in my neighborhood because I was getting lazy. But it was one I had seen a lot, taking walks in my neighborhood, and it was a spiritualist church. It was a church for mediums. Oh. And I went to this church. It was in a converted house, and there were rows of chairs, and each one had a book on it, not the Bible, but a song book. There was no MC or pastor or whatever. There was just everyone sat and kind of knew what to do. And so we sat in these chairs and opened the books, and we started singing. And we sang and sang and sang. And the songs, I kept feeling like, this is familiar. And then I realized what it was. So do you remember Tweety Bird's mom? Do you remember her, the little old lady? And she had white hair with the bun.
Yes.
And she wore a bustle.
Yes.
Like a late 19th century, early 20th century little lady with a brooch. And she would sing kind of like, oh, my little bird, I love you so. Remember, she had that silly little voice. And these songs were all like that, but with the vocabulary of spirit, oh, the flame of God is in my soul, and that kind of thing. And then it occurred to me that a spiritualist church, these songs would be written by the women who created the spiritualist movement in the late 19th century and early 20th century here. Annie Besant, Helena Blavatsky, the Theosophists, and they were Tweety Bird's mom! They were! And terrifying to me to realize that. And so, anyway, so then the singing stopped finally, an eternity of singing. And I thought, well, okay, But then the mediums came to the front. And there were about 4 or 5 people. They weren't wearing any special stuff. They just came to the front. It was a very casual church. People were in everyday clothes. And they stood at the front and they started doing this thing. They would look around and they would say, "Woman in the purple blouse, may I come to you?" And woman in the purple blouse would say yes. And then they wouldn't physically move toward her, but that was the permission or whatever to give the reading. And so then they would say kind of kooky stuff. And, woman in the purple blouse would say, "Oh, I'm seeing there is a knight of the round table. And he wants me to give you a medal." And now no real medal appeared, but that would have been awesome. And and he says it's a heart. It's a heart. It's a medal of the heart. And he wants you to know that you have been courageous in matters of the heart. Does this make sense to you? And lady in the purple blouse, crying, yes, yes. Okay. And so I'm like, call on me. I'm looking at them like how you look for a waitress at a restaurant. And I'm thinking, call on lady in the blue dress, lady in the blue dress, And there are 2 reasons why I so want them to call on me. One, of course, is for material.
Of course.
And the other reason is something I have to say. My mother died when I was a little girl. And so whenever I've been around these kind of people, fortune tellers or anyone, I want to hear from my mom. Okay? And I want to hear, I want to hear I want to hear I love you. I want to hear I'm proud of you, I'm with you. It's okay that you slept around in your 20s. Whatever it is that we want to hear from a dead parent. And so I want that to happen. And I'm waiting. And finally, one of them says, "Lady in the blue dress, woman in the blue dress, may I come to you?" And I'm like, yes. And so this medium says to me, "There is a man." Shit.
Yeah.
Now I have to tell you, my father died when I was about 24 or 25. I don't remember. I was high all the time then. But there was one thing you need to know about my father. And that was, there was a thing he wanted me to possess. And he believed that if I had this one thing, all doors would open for me. I would walk in the world right. And that was good posture. And so my whole life, my father he was one of those wrenchers,
Yes.
And he'd say, "Put your shoulders back. What are you, Quasimodo?" The teen girl really wants to hear that, and he would say, "Stand up straight. Stand up straight." And I know they're used to speaking in metaphoric language. I know that they know that that's what's going on. And so he says to me, "This man is telling me that he is watching you, watching over your life. And he wants you to know that it is the time to walk out in the world, to be who you are, to stand up straight."
Oh my goodness! Oh my!
And he said, "Does that make sense?" And I said, "Yes."
Oh my!
And so that was the last church.
Oh wow!
That's my story. Thank you.
Wow!
Well, I think you can see when Annie asked me to join her, I couldn't say no. She's so fantastic. That was really wonderful. So we're going to take a 5 or 10 minute break. Please enjoy more of what Boris has made for us here. And
Everyone has made.
everyone.
Oh, I
and
forgot
your
the chicken wings. I have chicken wings.
And now there'll be chicken wings, and we'll return here in 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll tell a story.
Yeah.
So,